everyone, and welcome to the Backlog podcast by ADAPTOVATE. My name is Bailey, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And today we have a very special episode with a few of our team members. As you can see, we are celebrating Pride Month here in North America and many countries around the world. To share a brief intro on myself, I am part of the people and culture team here at ADAPTOVATE. I look after talent acquisition in North America, and I'm actually based in Toronto, Canada. If you haven't already noticed, here at ADAPTOVATE, we value our diversity as a company. So today we've got some of our team members to help us celebrate Pride Month and chat about what Pride means to them. I would love to welcome Adria, Jeff, and Connor here today, and I'll give them each a chance to share a brief intro. Let's start with Adria.
Yes, thanks so much, Bailey. My name is Adria Anderson. My pronouns are she, her. I am joining from our Los Angeles office, and I am a consultant at ADAPTOVATE. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and in my career, I help companies and teams solve problems, specifically around strategy and program management.
Wonderful. Let's pass it over to Jeff.
Hey folks, nice to be here with you all. He, him, here in Houston, and principal at ADAPTOVATE.
And we'll finish with Connor.
Yep. Hey all, I'm Connor Hershkowitz. I'm one of the project leads in Sydney and been here for about 3 years, and pronouns are he, him as well. So lovely to be here.
Awesome. Thank you all. And just a really quick overview. I think Pride Month is pretty common knowledge now, but for those who don't know, Pride Month is a celebration of the LGBTQIA plus community, honoring its history, struggles, and achievements in the ongoing fight for equality and acceptance. And speaking of history, I'd love to hear about all of your histories. And if you could share some of your personal experiences or milestones that have shaped your journey as an individual in the community, I think that'd be a great place to start. Maybe we'll start with Jeff. What has it been like for you in your professional life?
Well, I can tell you, Bailey, I was meant to have a fun. I did have a fun weekend in LA, but I had a 5 a.m. call on Monday, so that's a milestone for Pride. That's a challenge. Um, uh, Look, I suppose in terms of you're kind of thinking like experiences that have shaped us in the workforce in particular. You know what, for me, and maybe it depends on when you become gay or when you recognize who you are, when you enter the workforce. For me, I think what was very formative was seeing, uh, for me, the first gay or lesbian people in the workforce, really, seeing like colleagues, senior leaders. Um, I'd had some experience before the workforce, but I had never seen them in cool roles or doing cool jobs or doing things that I like necessarily that I was wanting to do. You see, I would have seen a very particular image. I would have seen a Will and Grace version, um, or something along those lines. So to come to the workforce, see different people, different roles, people I admired and respected, and that other people admired and respected.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, shock horror. Guess what? They're just queer people are just the same as everyone else. So I think for me, that was a really nice milestone and something um, that I think is, that we're going to keep talking about, I'm sure, but something I think is important.
I love that. That reminds me of when I actually joined Adaptate for the first time. I was doing my research of our local team members, and I saw someone else who mentioned their husband, and they were a man, and I immediately felt safe and welcome to this environment that was clearly accepting of all people, no matter how they identify. So I love that you resonate with that too. Now,
For sure.
Connor, question for you. What has it been like in your personal life, as an individual in the community in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of building on what you said and what Jeff said, it's like thankfully I'm from New York. I've lived in Sydney, so I've always been in like places that are very welcoming of gay communities, which is really lovely. But I think it's like Jeff said, it's really important to like seeing gay people just living their lives, being who they are. And I think being in a welcoming city like kind of shows that. I think personally for me, it kind of ties in with like the professional bit of like, but that visibility of seeing people who are less like being their authentic selves, being who they want to be, and also like succeeding in that, not like hiding behind some veil, has been really lovely. And I've been lucky enough to like grow up seeing that as like that's the normal thing. Lots of my parents' friends were gay growing up, so it made it easier for me when I was kind of coming to terms with my sexuality because I did have some gay role models growing up, which I know many people didn't at that time. But I think that kind of the stage of that they were doing everything kind of just when they were being successful, they were doing any career, they were just them, and it created a safe space for me to be just me.
I love that. That's really nice. Adria, have you run into any unique situations or challenges in your career because of your identity?
So I also am very fortunate to, no, I got hit by the mute monster for myself. So I've been very fortunate to be to work in spaces that were extremely accepting and inclusive and very upfront in how their culture was, that they were inclusive to all folks. And so professionally, I didn't experience as many challenges as maybe other women that like women. I think for myself, I did explore my sexuality and come out at a much later age in life. And so I think my challenges were more so my community just trying to understand a little bit of how did we go from here to there? What does that mean? What does that look like? And then in the workspace, I think personally, I had to decide what does that look like? How do I communicate this to my colleagues? Do I communicate this? Do I have to? Does, my heterosexual colleague have to tell their other colleagues that they're dating someone of an opposite sex? No, why would I need to then go above and beyond to communicate that? But I think as someone, again, who came out very late in my life, and then also can be seen as a passing heterosexual. Most people assume that when I'm talking about I'm dating someone, they think I'm dating a man. And so I had to get really comfortable about what my response would be if I wanted to correct people, if I wanted to just let it pass. And I think that's where understanding the history and how many people have fought to ensure that this community was represented and felt safe, that's when I started to realize like I can't let those comments pass. And so it wasn't so much a struggle or a challenge, but more so me just feeling more comfortable about my journey and how I communicate that, and how by me communicating that, I also make safer spaces for people around me.
Well
Yeah.
said. Really well said. Anyone else deal with a specific challenge in, maybe not Adaptovate or other firms, or even in your, personal community relating to your identity?
I think I just want to pick up what Adria was saying there because I think that that really rings true. And we have different amongst the three of us and others different ways of kind of dealing with it. But Adria, completely agree with what you're saying, right? And I think queer people kind of generally know it, but maybe sometimes not everyone realizes there's this always this sense of you have to almost this micro outing every time you have a conversation where someone references either the wrong sex of a partner or whatever it is. And so you have to kind of weigh up, do I want to be that person that corrects them? Do I want to interrupt the flow of this conversation? do I even want this person to know? Like, is this person even someone close enough that I want to spend the effort letting them know what the actual truth of this situation is? And so, Adria, everything you said just rings completely true. And so I think I would say that is very much a unique challenge that keeps presenting. And then just how honest you want to be about yourself in different workplaces. I think for me, that answer has changed over time. Uh, and it's almost as you were talking, Adria, about coming out later. Maybe there's something before out, after out, kind of a way of thinking of it. Because I know that the immediate years after coming out, I wasn't comfortable at all. Um, Only good friends knew, and the hoops I would jump through to be neutral in my language, which I know, which is different now. I know for some people that's the intention, but um, I'm much more comfortable now, and but that wasn't something that happened overnight. That took time, but it also is, I think, a reflection of being in a workplace that's welcoming, in a city that's welcoming. I can't say that, like, I don't know because I haven't lived that path, but I don't know if I would feel as comfortable in different parts of the world with different companies, different kinds of clients. Um, but I know that I am now.
Yeah, I think just building that, I agree with everything. And it's even just like when you start at the new job, it's like what I've done is I now make the point of like saying my partner's name, so not just been like my partner, because like kind of just like removing that you say partner and they're like, oh, what's she do? And it's like by saying the name, it makes it quite obvious, like, okay, I'm gay. But even like those micro, it's like you get in the Uber and like people are asking what you do, they ask for your personal life, and I'm just like, it's not worth it. And then I'm just like, my partner, if they I'm like, why do they need to know kind of thing? Like, but it's also frustrating. Like like, why do I have to think about it? Like, do I even want to like correct them at this point? Um, in my prior jobs, like when I was a vet, it's a female industry or female dominated industry. And like the number of comments from like clients would be like, oh, you're a lucky man. Like you're surrounded by all these beautiful women. And it actually kind of makes you be an ally more for the women because it's like, I'm not going to correct you, but just like stick up for them. And those little comments that it's like a straight man probably don't make them think twice, or they do, but it's more off-putting, obviously, to a gay guy.
Yeah. I it's funny, right? Connor, because for me, I don't think I would wish I was the person who helped them along every single time they weren't right. But I don't think I am, if I'm really honest with myself. There's a time where I choose to say something and a time where I choose to say nothing.
It gets
And
exhausting.
well, yeah, to be honest, I don't want to have this conversation with my Uber driver. Like I just want to go home. And I
Yeah.
don't, and I don't, and I don't want the obligation to fall on me, but also I see how the obligation should fall on me because I want it to be good for the people around me in the workforce. So I don't know. For me, I think my boundary is kind of uh, at work. I probably try to be more clear about it, and then Uber drivers less so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Toronto. It's a very welcoming city, but when my partner and I get into an Uber, we're probably not going to be holding hands or calling each other babe. And don't get me wrong, I've never been in a situation that I didn't feel safe, but it really does make you so much more mindful of your surroundings and who may or may not be accepting of your sexual identity. So, really interesting perspectives. Thanks, everyone. Now, I mean, here we all are, a community together at Adaptovate. Why do we think that it's important to see the visibility and the representation in our field in general? And how has it made a difference in any of your lives?
I don't mind starting. My answer is actually very related to kind of how Jeff and Connor just closed us out in the last question. I think it's extremely important because one, we need to see more queer folks so that it just becomes natural, right? Like it just becomes a part of the conversation and we don't have to, more people are part of the community, right? Everyone might not identify as queer. But we need to see more representation so we don't have to carry that burden and that exhaustion and get burnt out having to be the sole person to say, hey, I'm not dating a man, don't want to go into the details, but right, like we should not be the only ones carrying that. And I think that um, there are opportunities for allyship, right? For our allies to stand up and to have it in the language of the community and the organization, to make sure language is inclusive, to make sure people just don't bring assumptions to the table, right? And then, we're all human. We can't always get it right. We're not always on, have the right terminology and everything, and that's okay. We're not expecting people to be perfect, but we are expecting, or what I expect, right? And what I want in workplaces and spaces to feel more comfortable is that people are okay with figuring out what is more appropriate to say or what is the right thing to say, and just having some humility and desire to be more curious appropriately in those spaces.
Yeah. I think there's
I think,
definitely a space where it's okay to ask questions. If you are close with your colleague and they are genuinely interested about your life or just the community in general, what's Pride Month all about? I'd love to have that conversation, but definitely not in all settings. There is a time and a place, and you want to feel comfortable as well yourself. So,
yeah, I think it's hard to be something if you don't see it there, like there's a reason why everyone has like role models growing up, like that visibility matters in that way. And also just like knowing that you're welcome. I think one of the things that Adaptivate has done that's kind of been like, it's fostered inclusion, kind of an initiative at work that has worked is, when I first joined, Jeff, you were in Sydney. I don't know if, oh, we lost Jeff. Um, at the time, but it was like 3 years ago, basically, like to the day. And so it was Pride Month. And in Sydney, it's not the same time. Like we have Mardi Gras as the really Pride Month, but what they did to celebrate anyways was there was like a walking tour of like Oxford Street, which is the gay area of Sydney, led by one of the partners who also is gay. And it was just nice to like join a place and immediately be welcomed into something where it's like by them putting on something, like it was open to anyone, most of the people who did join worship, but it just immediately I joined a new company, and whether I win, I did go, but whether I go or not to this event, feel more at ease, because it's just like, oh, we're not calling out who's gets, here's anyone, but it's a welcoming space, and it's not like we're gonna have drinks to celebrate with like rainbow cupcakes. It's like you're actually gonna immerse yourself in like the culture around you. And like you said, Bailey, like people ask questions on that, those questions that they might not feel safe to ask, like if you were like an ally, but then they're brought in. And I think allyship's a really important thing. Like no one does anything alone, regardless of what you do. Like everyone has some support along the way.
that's so cool, Connor. I didn't know that was an event that took place. This is my first Pride Month at Adaptovate, and being on the people and culture team, we're thinking of different ways that we can educate our offices and make it fun, because it really can be such a fun experience. So we are definitely known for our drag shows here in Toronto, and I will be doing some research to see if we can get our Toronto office into one of those events. And hopefully our team also feels welcome. It is truly such an amazing space to be in.
And Bailey, before you head on, I did want to shout out Connor because, one of the things Adaptivate does is we have our coffee chats where it encourages you to have a coffee chat with someone from the organization across the world. And Connor was one of my first coffee chats when I
I
got to
remember it.
Adaptivate, and we jumped on the call. And I can't remember if it was Connor who said it or myself. And I was like, my partner, she, and I threw out her pronoun. It kind of like picked it up. It was like, oh yeah, my partner, he. And I was like, yes. And it was
Oh,
just
I
a
love
good
that.
call,
Yeah.
but we just I just started in that space because to that point, kind of right, like I felt comfortable. I felt like Adaptivate was a very safe space and I didn't make any assumptions, but I just came in and said,
Oh,
hey, I'm meeting this person. I moved out here with my partner, she dot, dot, dot. And it just, I don't know, I immediately felt that camaraderie with him just for us connecting on that and just having just good conversation, getting to know each other as well.
thanks, Adria. That
Yeah.
warmed my heart. And I mean, I remember that too. It was, yeah, like I remember being like impressed. I was like, oh, it's great that she's so comfortable and like we could be comfortable together. So, oh, thank you.
That's so nice. What a great memory. Now, aside from events like maybe a historical walk of the gay village or a drag show, can y'all think of some other meaningful ways that our colleagues or companies in general can show support to create a welcoming space?
Uh, I think we've touched on it, and I think I think it's so critical in an ongoing way is representation at different levels.
Hmm.
So people need to be able to see themselves as peers. They need to see more junior people and they need to see more senior people. And I think essentially, but this isn't a uh, way of doing things just for the queer community. That's kind of how we should be reflecting our communities, and queer community is one of those communities. So I think that that's just par for the course. I'm also very mindful that global companies maybe have a different kind of obligation. Um, Not everyone has the same rights in every country. So how do you create an inclusive environment? Um, and what's the benchmark? What's the standard for that inclusivity across the globe? I'm not sure it can be. My opinion is I'm not sure it can be okay for that standard to change in different places. And maybe there's some realities we have to face, but I think at the very least, create an environment that uh, that everyone feels welcome no matter where in the world they're from. Reasonable uh, way of working.
That's a really great point. That reminds me of an experience, and it kind of has like a solution that I think truly would be somewhat welcomed everywhere. I recently called my healthcare provider requesting some insight about a claim that I submitted on behalf of my partner. And they kept calling my partner Mr. Last Name, him, he, this, all that. And I waited until the end of the call because I could tell this person was kind. They really just weren't probably trained in inclusive terminology. But I waited
Mhm.
until the end of the call and I said, hey, like, thank you so much for your help today, but I just wanted to let you know that inclusive terminology can really bring a safer space to your clients, your users. My partner is a woman, and I know that you made that assumption. So in the future, using terms like they or their name or partner in general are super simple ways that people can respect the unknown, right? We can't make any assumptions unless people straight up tell us. So I think the easiest is truly just using someone's name before or partner.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Adria, Connor? Any others?
I think I'd agree with that. I think we've touched on like most of it's just like the visibility. Like I said before, it's if you can't see it, it's hard to be it. And I think barely what you were just saying there, that like that holds true with me, that's what I was saying. It's like when I introduce my partners by name now, like and I just try to ask them like what's your partner do? Yeah, just those small little things that aren't an aggression if you're heterosexual or homosexual, like no matter what, it's just inclusive or anything in between. So,
That's great. Now, if y'all could, how do I say this? If y'all could make one or two things change or happen in the next year or so to boost inclusion and equality, what would they be? It could be very small, minuscule, or very large and grandiose. You can take a second to think.
Yeah.
I'm happy to, while you think. Look, mine's not as tactile as I would like. I think I sometimes I worry that we think that and people can generally think like, oh, you've got marriage, it's kind of done. Like, get this off
Mhm.
my plate. And to a big part, it's true. Like, in a way, I feel compared to, the times of the 60s, 70s, and earlier and later. Yeah, the kind of the discussion now is so different, and we're so much more accepted and normal. But I suppose I reflect on, we had a marriage equality vote recently or a few years ago back in Australia, and it won, which was amazing. But it was 60% yes, 40% no.
Wow.
And that's a strong vote, right? And it was yes in like something like 130 of the 150 electorates. That still means there's like about 20 that it wasn't the majority. And so I suppose for me it's like sometimes we can have a very local view, a metropolitan view, but actually, unless you can hold hands with your partner everywhere, I think there's still more work to do in terms of building inclusive communities. And then, that flows through, I think, in terms of uh, queer people, have more mental health issues. They experience homelessness more. So there's very tactile in that regard, very things you can do, things that societies can do to make them, or to make us feel equality, I suppose. It's really equality.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I kind of build on it, Jeff, because I think that a lot of people they do assume like once you have marriage, you have everything. There's so much more that even just like in terms of healthcare access to like when you go to the doctor, the comments they make, or just like what like you have to worry about as like a gay man versus like a straight man, or like it's or what you're more prone to get, or things like that. Things just to be aware of, and just also like the struggle doesn't necessarily stop when you come out, because there's coming out to your family, there's coming out at work, there's it's like an ongoing thing being gay, it's who you are and the identity. And I think people kind of seem like, oh, well, once you're out, cool, you're yourself, you're free to be who you are. But it's like, well, still have to be aware of the people around me, and I think many people don't have to be as hyper vigilant.
Yeah. Especially traveling, I know as consultants and leaders in our company, you all travel quite a bit, and we're not always just traveling in North America or Australia. There's definitely been places that I'm sure you have been to that you really didn't feel safe being out, and that's not a really great feeling.
I think one of my favorite places that I've ever traveled, I wouldn't be safe to go there with my partner.
Oh, wow.
And that's, disheartening. But I think what I would like to see in the next year, which is extremely idealistic, but it's more of a shift in behaviors and beliefs, right? In mindsets, like we like to say at Adaptivate. But a shift in mindset from people that just because I don't understand doesn't mean I have to understand or put a value judgment on something to show respect and dignity to you as a human being. And I think if we could shift to that, then a lot of things would flow down and a lot of rights would be wrong if we could shift our mindset to that.
Yeah, well said.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, I think we will close the conversation there. That was super insightful. But before we sign off on the Backlog podcast, we like to ask our guests if you have any podcast recommendations. Who would like to share?
I'm happy to go. It's
Oof.
not it's this. I know it's not anything groundbreaking, but I am a big fan of The Rest is Politics, both the US and the UK version, so if you like politics, they're both very entertaining, informative, and yeah, would give
Cool.
it a go.
The rest is politics?
Rest is politics, and there's the UK version, as well as the US version, and they have like a whole series of like the rest is history. They go into a few things, but I believe the rest is politics UK is like the one that started it all.
The
Or I
UK
could be
has,
wrong if it started it all, but they're great. Listen to them.
yeah, I was going to say the UK always has the best series, and then it typically kind of trickles down into the North Americas.
Yeah.
So my
Go for it, Adria. Sorry.
Okay, my recommendation is completely personal. It's fun, and it's a little stereotypical with the lesbian community because it's astrology related. So, there's always a joke that lesbians are asking each other, "What's your sign?" But one of my favorite podcasts that's fun and enlightening, but led by a queer woman, is Down to Astro. And so she just talks about, astrology, but in very inclusive ways. And there's always a message on how you can be more inclusive to queer communities.
That's so cool. And in those podcasts, are they sign specific, or does she or they speak on all signs?
She does a general one that kind of speaks of what's going on right now and how that lands for everyone, but you can get more specific and more detailed. So,
Amazing.
yeah, check it out if
Now
you're
I want to
interested.
know what the forecast is for this month now. We need to go look it up.
Yes, a lot of joy and a lot of pride.
I'll take that. I'll take that. Honestly, I don't listen to podcasts that much. I'm sorry, but there is one I do like. Not all the time, just sometimes. Called Fall of Civilization. So it's this. I think he's a historian, and he just goes through all this evidence, and he talks about how a different society fell. And they're hours long, and they're great if you're like out and about or camping, and you don't have like TikTok or whatever. So I don't mind kind of like a historical one.
Cool. Okay, we've got a history person on the call here. I will close out by sharing my favorite podcast that I actually heard of from my parents. They're pretty cool parents. It's called Smartless. It's got a few pretty famous actors on there, and it is actually hilarious. So if you're ever going for a train ride or driving your car somewhere, put it on. You'll have a really good laugh, and you'll probably learn a little bit as well, which is always fun to do. Great. Well, thank you all for coming today to the Backlog and chatting with me to celebrate Pride Month this year. Goodbye, and we will see you all next time.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Bailey.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, Bailey.
Bye.